If you follow my channel, then you'll know I've been having a few issues with this Tanaka 2-stroke chainsaw. To be honest, it's been a pain in the butt for many years now. I'll be honest, so that if this has happened to you, then you know how to cure the issue and have your chainsaw running smooth and sweet again. So what happened was I accidentally put the bar oil into the petrol tank, and after that it was always a bit difficult to start, wouldn't run properly, smoothly until it was well warmed up. So what I did was take the cover off for the carburettor and air filter. I gave the air filter a really good clean, but more importantly I gave the carburettor a spray with carb cleaner. I went as far as taking off the cover. Just be careful of the rubber diaphragm, you don't break that. I had intended taking off the fuel line and giving the carb a soak in carb cleaner, but the line is on quite tight and I didn't want to damage anything and then have to take the whole thing apart to get to it. So once I had the cover off, I gave all of the jets a spray. With carb cleaner, and then before I put it back together I made sure that it was getting fuel. So there you go, you can see the fuel coming out of that hole there. Yep. Okay, then all I did was put it back together again. You need to make sure that the idle screw, here's the idle mechanism, and you need to make sure that that idle screw is located back in properly. Before clamping down the top of the carb. Tight enough is tight. Back on with the air filter. And the cover. And what I did was remove the spark plug. Okay, and the reason why I did that was I wanted to make sure that I could flush out some fuel. So I gave it a really good pump, ran it a few times, or pulled the cord a few times to move the fuel down through the carburettor, through the piston, and if there was any, out through the spark plug hole. Then I had a look at the spark plug, it seems to be okay. It's a little bit oily in places. Put it back together again. There we go. A little bit fiddly to get the thread started. Then before I put the spark plug cover on, I'll spray with some Electra Clean. Again, fiddly, but just to make sure everything was, that I was getting as good a spark as possible. That's seated properly. Will it start? Choke on, switch on, give it some prime, although I think it's probably had quite a bit. Fired first time. Will it continue to run, or will it conk out like it used to before? Oh, it conked out. Okay, so some small adjustment on the idle screw. This saw only has an adjustment on the carburettor for the idle screw. It doesn't have any other, well, it does have adjustments for the carburettor itself, the jets in the carburettor, but they are set in the factory, so you can't adjust them. So the only adjustment you have is the idle screw. Try it the other way. It's been idling really nicely for a few minutes now. When it was cold, the other issue it used to have was if I moved it around, it would conk out. Switch it off and restart it and see what happens. It's perfect now. Starts easily, no chain overrun, fixed. Another issue that I used to have was it not getting. I thought it wasn't getting oil. Is it getting oil now? It certainly is. How does it cut? This was a very dry log. I'd expect it to cut faster and more cleanly through fresh logs. even though a good result. It cuts just fine. I've waited over an hour for it to cool down, just to make sure that I've set the carburettor correctly. Cold starting it. Choke on, switch on, brake on. I've let it run there for a good 5 minutes and it just burbles, idles really nicely. So back to being a really nice saw as I remember it when I first bought it. It starts very easily, it idles smoothly, it gets plenty of oil. You can adjust the amount of oil that you put through it. I just use vegetable oil, rapeseed oil as bar oil. It works just fine. I'm selling this saw €120 if you're interested. Pass the link on to anyone that you might think will be interested. As always, thanks a mil for taking the time, always appreciated.